The scandal started quietly, like so many royal controversies, whispers behind palace doors, a hushed conversation overheard in Windsor, an unexpected absence at Balmoral, and the Queen's closest advisers suddenly growing tight-lipped. But what followed ignited the most explosive royal drama since the days of Princess Diana. Months after Queen Elizabeth II passed away, the public believed the matter was settled. The will made public was carried out with the usual ceremony and respect, dividing royal estates and heirlooms in a traditional fashion. Yet, insiders now reveal that what was presented to the world was only part of the story, a carefully crafted version designed to keep the peace. According to several high-ranking sources, there was another will. This secret, legally binding document reportedly bypassed Queen Camilla and left the lion's share of Elizabeth's personal royal fortune to Catherine, Princess of Wales. The implications are staggering. If true, this was about far more than just jewelry and photographs. The Queen's final instructions, kept private, shifted major jewels, titles, properties, and even some royal duties to Kate, the woman she apparently saw as the rightful future of the monarchy. Camilla, wife of Charles and now Queen Consort, was deliberately excluded. Insiders say it was a calculated move to shape the legacy. When this information reached the inner circle, everything shifted. Couriers raced, legal teams gathered under strict secrecy, but the damage was done. Camilla's reaction was swift, intense, and explosive. But before we continue, we'd love for you to hit the subscribe button if you're enjoying this video. If you just did, we truly appreciate it. Now let's get back to the main content. Behind closed doors, she reportedly flew into a rage rarely seen within the palace walls. She screamed betrayal, accused the late queen of sending a final insult from beyond the grave, and even turned on Charles in fury, according to an advisor who wished to remain anonymous. Meanwhile, Kate, caught in the middle, was quietly pulled back from public view, her team instructed to handle the situation with utmost composure. Despite all the chaos, one thing became clear. Queen Elizabeth never fully accepted Camilla as a true heir. She respected the institution, but her trust belonged to Kate. In her final act, the Queen may have quietly reshaped the monarchy's future, not with speeches or public declarations, but with a single, decisive stroke of her pen. No one saw it coming, the royal shockwave that would shake the monarchy, and the fallout is just beginning. To truly understand the significance of Queen Elizabeth's final wishes and the anger they ignited, you have to look at the quiet friendship that formed between the Queen and the woman who would one day marry her grandson. Long before Catherine became the Princess of Wales, long before the grand wedding and worldwide fanfare, Queen Elizabeth II had quietly taken a special interest in her. It wasn't showy or dramatic, but it was undeniably genuine. From their earliest private meetings, palace insiders noticed the Queen's quiet admiration for Kate. Unlike many who joined the royal family seeking fame, influence, or approval, Catherine brought something different: poise under pressure. She was calm, educated, and most importantly to the Queen, exceptionally discreet. While others sought out the cameras, Kate seemed relieved to stay out of the spotlight. While other royal spouses made headlines, Kate maintained her dignity, even when the media tried to provoke her. One retired palace aide recalled that after their second private tea, the Queen quietly said, "She's one of the few who really understands what this life demands and meets it without complaint." That was high praise coming from a monarch known for her reserve. Queen Elizabeth had always been cautious about outsiders marrying into the royal family. The pain from Diana's struggles, along with the later Meghan and Harry rift, only increased her concerns. But Kate felt different. Over time, the Queen slowly gave her more responsibility, often behind the scenes. She invited Catherine to events usually reserved for senior royals. More unusually, the Queen began sharing personal advice with Kate. There are whispers about handwritten letters from Elizabeth to Kate, full of encouragement, wisdom, and even warnings. In one rumored letter, written shortly after Kate gave birth to Princess Charlotte, the Queen reportedly praised her quiet strength and called her a mother the crown would one day thank. The Queen rarely expressed such feelings, but Kate earned that rare exception. Then there were private gifts. Catherine supposedly received a diamond brooch that once belonged to Queen Mary as a present for her 10th wedding anniversary with William, an heirloom never worn by Camilla nor given to Anne. It wasn't about the jewelry, but the message. Insiders believe it was the Queen's subtle way of saying, "You're not just married into the family, you're the future of it." Elizabeth and Kate fell into a steady rhythm. They shared a deep sense of duty, and perhaps even more importantly, a quiet acceptance of sacrifice. When William was away on royal tours or working with air ambulances, Kate often brought George and Charlotte to Windsor, not for photo ops, but for real moments. The Queen, often distant and stern with her own children, reportedly softened around them. Kate made that possible. Meanwhile, Camilla's relationship with the Queen remained strained, burdened by history and resentment. Although Queen Elizabeth outwardly accepted Camilla after years of controversy, those close to her knew it was never wholehearted. The Queen, always traditional, reportedly confided to a close friend that she believed Charles's marriage to Camilla had undermined the crown's moral standing. She respected the choice, but never fully supported it. So when the time came to consider her legacy, not just in material terms but symbolic ones, Elizabeth had to decide who truly embodied the values she had devoted her life to protecting. Who could uphold the crown's dignity moving forward? For Queen Elizabeth, Camilla was not that person. That role belonged to Catherine. By the time the final will was drawn up, the one now whispered about in royal circles, that affection had evolved into something much deeper. What began as mutual respect had grown into a firm belief. Kate was the one who would safeguard, not sully, the monarchy. She had earned not only the Queen's approval but her full trust. And in a royal household where trust is as precious as gold, that meant everything. For years, royal watchers have speculated about what Queen Elizabeth II would leave behind, not just in public duties but in private choices. The monarch held access to personal wealth, family heirlooms, and symbolic treasures not listed on any official record. While the will made public after her death in 2022 was formal, measured, and expected, a far more controversial version was quietly gaining attention behind the scenes. According to multiple palace insiders, a secret second will was drafted during the Queen's final months and known only to a handful of her most loyal aides. Unlike the official document, which followed protocol and tradition, this confidential version was said to reflect the Queen's true wishes, unfiltered by courtiers or political concerns. Sources say the contents were nothing short of explosive. Camilla's name was noticeably absent from many of the Queen's most cherished personal belongings in this private draft. Instead, Catherine was granted jewelry once thought destined for the Queen consort, including pieces from the Queen Mother's collection, along with rumored rights to wear the famed Delhi Durbar tiara, a historic crown jewel closely linked to Queen Mary and rarely seen in recent decades. But it didn't stop there. Whispers from Windsor claim that Sandringham's summer villa, one of the Queen's most treasured private retreats, was not left to Charles or Anne as expected, but rather passed to William and Kate, with instructions that it serve as a family sanctuary for future generations of the Windsors. Even more striking were rumors of a collection of personal letters and handwritten diaries that were reportedly entrusted solely to Catherine. If these documents truly exist, they would offer an unprecedented glimpse into the Queen's private reflections throughout her reign. The fact that these intimate writings were given to Kate rather than Charles or Anne is viewed by some as a quiet coronation in itself. A former insider from the Queen's closest circle revealed that the final will was sealed in a private royal vault, accessible only to those with the highest security clearance, among them King Charles and Princess Anne, but notably not Camilla. Reports suggest Charles was blindsided despite his composed exterior. Insiders say he was profoundly unsettled by how seldom Camilla appeared in the Queen's private bequests. To others within the royal family, this went beyond simple favoritism. It was a pointed rebuke, a clear signal that while Camilla may hold the title of Queen Consort, Catherine was Queen Elizabeth's true choice in spirit. The response was immediate, and the consequences were enormous. Legally, the will was airtight. The Queen had ensured everything was done by the book, likely anticipating the storm it would cause. And since the assets involved were personal rather than official, challenging the will was nearly impossible. What stung Camilla the most wasn't what was included, but what was left out. There was no personal letter, no acknowledgement, no handing down of treasured heirlooms. For a woman who had fought so hard to gain royal acceptance, the silence was deafening. What followed shook the palace to its core and unleashed a fury from Camilla that palace staff still recall vividly. But beneath the outbursts lay an even darker truth. The Queen had spoken from beyond the grave, and she had chosen Kate. What happened that night inside Clarence House was never meant to leave its walls. Yet even the palace's most seasoned aides couldn't contain what they witnessed. A breakdown so intense and raw that even veteran staff reportedly appeared shaken. According to multiple insiders, Camilla's reaction to learning about the secret will was immediate and explosive, relayed not through formal channels, but via Charles, fresh from a private legal briefing. She reportedly let out a scream that echoed throughout the residence. One staff member summed it up plainly. It wasn't shock, it was betrayal. Deep, personal betrayal. And she showed it openly. Camila, who had spent decades climbing from public villain to Queen Consort, felt the Queen's rejection like a knife to the heart. After enduring relentless public scrutiny and a long, difficult path to acceptance, being excluded from the Queen's final will wasn't just an insult, it was a verdict. You will never truly be her. Eyewitnesses say Camilla paced angrily for nearly an hour, firing accusations at anyone who entered. Was this all part of her plan? Camilla reportedly demanded. She smiled at me while giving the crown to that girl behind my back. And that girl, of course, was Kate. She reportedly lashed out at Charles, accusing him of cowardice. You let her do this to me. You knew she didn't want me here, yet you allowed it anyway. Witnesses say she shouted before throwing a crystal glass against the wall. Even Charles, who had endured Camilla's fiery moods for years, was left speechless by her outburst. It wasn't merely about jewelry or property. The Queen's symbolic rejection cut the deepest. Entrusting Kate with heirlooms, legacies, and personal reflections, while denying Camilla even a simple acknowledgement, confirmed what Camilla had long feared. She was tolerated, not truly loved. A palace footman who overheard the commotion in the hallway recalled hearing Camilla sobbing, I was never good enough for her. No matter what I did, it was never enough. That raw, anguished moment starkly contrasted with the composed, polished Queen Consort the public knew. This wasn't just anger, it was pure rejection. Camilla's worst nightmare had come true. Staff were instructed not to talk about what happened. Phones were confiscated, schedules cleared. The next day, the palace issued a statement saying Camilla was down with the flu and would be resting privately. But behind closed doors, the damage was done. Camilla reportedly ordered her senior aides to explore whether the will could be challenged. Lawyers were quietly consulted. Royal advisors urged her to drop it, explaining the Queen's personal possessions were legally untouchable. But Camilla wasn't ready to back down. Over the following days, her behavior reportedly shifted. In public, she maintained appearances, tight smiles, quick waves. Behind palace walls, she was furious, bitter, and vengeful. Staff tread carefully. Even Charles, her staunchest defender, began retreating into long, solitary walks in the royal gardens. Meanwhile, Kate was advised to keep a low profile. Though she had done nothing to provoke the Queen's decision, she became the unintended target of Camilla's wrath, an anger that only intensified with time. As the palace scrambled to manage the fallout, one thing was clear. This was no longer a private family matter. Camilla had just ignited a war beyond the palace gates. Outside Clarence House, chaos erupted, but inside Adelaide Cottage, the Prince and Princess of Wales's modest yet elegant home, the atmosphere was different, calm, heavy with anticipation, and tense. The Queen's secret will not only shook the monarchy's foundations, but placed an enormous burden on two people who never sought it. Prince William was deeply moved when he learned his grandmother had left such a significant legacy to his wife. Those close to him say he sat quietly for hours after reading the details, not because he disagreed with the Queen's choice, but because he fully grasped its meaning. In a family that rarely speaks openly, this was as clear as it could be. The Queen entrusted her legacy to Catherine, not through titles or wealth, but through trust. William reportedly told an aide, "This wasn't about jewels. It was Gran's way of showing the world who she believed in." Catherine found that realization overwhelming. Kate had always steered clear of palace drama. She never chased headlines or got involved in controversy. Yet now she found herself at the heart of the most serious royal scandal since Diana, and she hadn't started it. Sources say Kate was visibly stunned when William quietly showed her the Queen's secret letter, a handwritten note tucked inside the sealed will. The letter's contents remain closely guarded, but those who have glimpsed it describe it as deeply personal and almost motherly. Elizabeth reportedly praised Catherine for her loyalty, grace, and quiet strength, expressing confidence that the crown would be in good hands if guided by Kate's values. After reading it, Kate reportedly broke down in tears, not out of pride, but from a profound inner conflict. She understood exactly what it meant for Camilla. Though she had never been close to the Queen Consort, she never intended to take anything away from her. She never wanted this battle, a long-time aide revealed. But it was handed to her, whether she liked it or not. Despite the pressure, William and Catherine handled themselves with calm dignity. There were no public statements, no leaked stories, no veiled barbs through the media. Instead, the couple withdrew from public appearances for several days, apparently reflecting on the Queen's final words and preparing for the inevitable backlash, both inside the palace and likely from Charles and Camilla. Even in silence, their influence grew. Courtiers noticed a subtle shift in royal plans. Engagements that once revolved around Charles and Camilla quietly began to focus more on William and Kate. Senior aides started briefing Catherine on humanitarian projects, protocol, and upcoming Commonwealth visits, duties typically reserved for the Queen Consort. Public sentiment followed suit. Polls showed a rising wave of support for the Princess of Wales. Social media overflowed with praise, some comparing her poise to that of Queen Elizabeth herself. One popular comment summed it up. She never asked to be queen, but she already is. Within the palace, the balance of power shifted, not officially, but symbolically. In the royal family, symbolism means everything. Kate never sought the crown, but by the Queen's design and the people's affection, she had become its bearer. And as the battle with Camilla escalated, William stood firmly by her side. No matter what the future held, one thing was clear. Catherine wasn't just part of the legacy, she was the legacy. Secrecy is second nature to the British royal family. For nearly 1,000 years, the monarchy has perfected the art of burying scandals before they breach its walls. But never before had the stakes been this high, or the truth this volatile as with the Queen's hidden will. When tensions inside Clarence House reached a boiling point, the palace moved swiftly, deploying its most trusted strategy, a coordinated cover-up. Within 48 hours of Camilla's meltdown, top advisors from Buckingham Palace, Clarence House, and Kensington Palace gathered for a secret emergency meeting. No agendas, no cameras, no press. The mission was clear: contain the fallout, protect the monarchy's reputation, and permanently bury the secret will. First came the silence. Any staff who had seen or heard about the Queen's secret will were handed non-disclosure agreements stricter than any before. Long-time palace employees were reassigned, and some quietly dismissed under unclear circumstances. The Queen's private legal team, which managed the discreet execution of the second will, vanished from public view. One member was reportedly sent overseas. Next came the attempt to control the narrative. The palace communications team crafted an alternative story. Camilla had fallen ill, citing stress and exhaustion. Official statements explained Kate and William's sudden absence from public events as due to school holidays and family time. According to public records, the Queen's remaining assets were distributed transparently and as expected. But behind the palace walls, the cover-up was unraveling. Princess Anne, known for her indifference to palace politics, was reportedly deeply unsettled. Sources say she had seen the Queen's secret will weeks before the funeral. While she initially accepted its privacy, Camilla's furious reaction and effort to erase the truth disturbed her deeply. A royal historian noted Anne's commitment was to duty, not drama. And this wasn't about theatrics, it was about dishonesty. Charles remained mostly silent. Some say he was paralyzed, torn between honoring his mother's final wishes and managing his wife's growing distress. Others claim he orchestrated the cover-up, directing legal advisors to keep the Queen's private will from public eyes. At Kensington Palace, William and Kate were reportedly ordered not to discuss the matter with anyone, not even trusted staff. The message was clear: act as if nothing had happened. Yet the tension was palpable. Behind Catherine's composed exterior lay the heavy burden of a nation, not a crown, but the harsh reality she could never voice. Meanwhile, whispers began seeping into the press. No big headlines or scandals, just subtle hints, anonymous tips to tabloids, odd shifts in royal schedules, a missing tiara from the collection. Journalists, long wary of crossing the royal family, steered clear of the topic. One outlet briefly published an article titled, "Was Kate the Chosen One All Along?" before it was swiftly taken down, reportedly after a stern call from a senior palace official. Despite the palace's efforts to mend the cracks, the truth was already slipping through. The Queen's choice, her final act of shaping her legacy, left an indelible mark. The official narrative might endure, but inside the family and among those closest to the crown, a clear line had been drawn. Elizabeth had chosen Catherine, and now everyone knew it, whether spoken aloud or kept silent. In the end, Queen Elizabeth II's parting message wasn't about titles, jewels, or estates. It was about trust, her trust in Catherine. A trust so profound and deliberate that it shattered the institution she had devoted her life to protecting. Her last will wasn't just a division of heirlooms. It was a quiet revolution, bypassing hierarchy and politics to define the legacy she wished to leave behind. The Queen had seen the monarchy weather wars, divorces, betrayals, and scandals. She endured the heartbreak of Diana's death, the disgrace surrounding Prince Andrew, and the upheaval caused by Harry and Meghan's split. But in Catherine, she saw something rare. A woman who carried herself with grace, wisdom, and an unwavering commitment to duty. A woman who never chased power but proved she could wield it with elegance and steadiness. Though the palace follows tradition and Camilla holds the title of Queen Consort, the impact of Elizabeth's secret will continue to resonate. Catherine approaches her duties with quiet confidence. The public admires her naturally, not out of obligation. Within royal circles, her influence steadily grows, not Camilla's. And Camilla, despite being Queen Consort in name, is noticeably absent from key events and has withdrawn from public life, signaling a shift no official statement can deny. The Queen's final act wasn't dramatic, but it was profound. It was a clear message to Camilla and the world. Titles can be inherited, but true legacy has to be earned. As one insider put it, Camila might carry the title, but Catherine holds the crown, the one that truly counts. Maybe that's exactly how Queen Elizabeth intended it. There won't be grand announcements, no battles for the throne, just a quiet, handwritten passing of the torch from one queen to the next, steady, resolute, eternal. Catherine wasn't merely accepted. She was chosen by the only woman whose decision truly mattered.